It's time to be gentle with ourselves and explore healing ourselves inwards to heal the planet outwards. Up next, we have Timothy Hand with Self-Compassion as a Starting Place to Address Climate Change. Timothy Hand is a contemplative essayist and MS in counseling student at Prescott College, focusing on nature-based therapy. Drawing inspiration from Zen practices and Buddhist psychology, he infuses mindfulness and compassion into his counseling approach, passionately guiding others to step into their power and spark transformative change in their lives and relationships. His research and writings emphasize the importance of self-care, forgiveness, loving kindness, and humor, often exploring these themes of authenticity, interconnectedness, and the transformative power of kindness and empathy. Hand's work highlights the profound impact these principles have on individuals, their communities, and the more than human world we all share. And I ask that you please be gentle with Timothy today as he is currently recovering from being sick. Please take it away, Timothy.
All right, we're here. Yes, I am sick. So I'll just give you the skinny on it. It's going to impact how we do this whole thing. Adaptability is an important skill for self-compassion. So I'm doing that now. And so yesterday, I've been sick this whole week, like really bad in a way that I've never had before. So I had to break down and go to the urgent care yesterday. And so I went to the urgent care and they're like, oh yeah, you have COVID. And I was like, what? Oh, okay. Never had that. That's my first time having COVID in the 4 years that's been around. So I'm doing a lot better. So everyone can know that. But because of that, it's made my approach at this talk a little bit messy, a little bit loosey-goosey. But that's great. That's fine. Because being messy is part of being human. So I'm going to put some quick information about me in the chat for everyone. It just has some links. If you have a question after this talk or even sometime in the future, it has my email in there. Feel free to email me. I love talking about this stuff. So hit me with it. There's also, let's see if I can make this a little less messy. There's also a link to where I publish my essays on Substack. My publications are called Optimistic Hermit. And then there's also a link to my most recent essay, which is kind of how I tried to coalesce my understanding around this topic of self-compassion as a starting place to address climate change. So everybody can have that. Also, we'll lead into some, we got time. We can have fun here because we got an hour, and I also really want to hear from you folks, but let's get into some acknowledgments. So first, I'd like to acknowledge the land that I'm presently on. I am in the city of Albuquerque, which is the unceded homelands of the Tiwa people, who have stewarded this land for generations. I honor their enduring connection to this land, their culture, and their contributions. I would also like to recognize the land of my origin, the island of Oahu in Hawaii. The Kanaka Maoli, the native Hawaiian people, have cared and nurtured for that land of my birth and still do to this day, despite the continuation of colonialism in that part of the world. Oahu and the Hawaiian people have profoundly influenced my understanding and shaped my values, especially in the context of our reciprocal relationship with nature and each other as a community. So I wanted to take the time to acknowledge those two lands and the indigenous people of those lands. I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge the systemic nature of privilege that comes with my identity as a white, heterosexual, cisgender man. In Western culture, these identities often afford individuals unearned advantages and power, shaping their experiences and opportunities in ways that are not equally available to everyone. I recognize that the I'm sorry, I'm having a little problem with my windows. I recognize that the systemic privilege affects the dynamics of our interaction with me in the position of a speaker and you as the audience. It's important to acknowledge that the perspectives I share are influenced by these privileges, which may not reflect the diverse experiences and challenges faced by others. So I do want to foster an inclusive and respectful environment where all voices and perspectives are valued. I deeply appreciate your presence and engagement today, and I encourage open dialogue and feedback. Um, Also, assumptions and paradigms. I come from a background of psychotherapy. That's where my training is, and also Zen Buddhism. So that's kind of the framework where I understand these things. And within any framework that you use to try to navigate this world and bump into as few objects as possible, you're going to have some assumptions that you're operating from under. So, three assumptions that I operate under that uh, influence my understanding of this topic is that everything is interrelated. And I'll get into that more specifically. That there is really no such thing as good and bad. They're just stories that we tell ourselves. And then, and you'll have to bear with me because I kind of lose my breath sometimes with this COVID thing. And that everyone deserves to be happy, healthy, and thriving. Why? Because it's their birthright. It's not something you earn. You don't need to have to fight for your little patch of dirt on this earth. It's your birthright. You deserve to be happy, healthy, and thriving. So those are three assumptions that I have that inform this perspective. And then also, and this is just important for me because to put out there because I am a therapist trainee, that although I am a counseling trainee, I am not a licensed therapist. Therefore, I am not qualified to provide mental health advice. The information I share today is intended for informational purposes only, maybe philosophical ones. If any audience members are experiencing significant psychological distress, I strongly advise seeking the assistance of a licensed mental health professional. They are equipped to provide the appropriate support and guidance. And thank you for understanding, and I appreciate your attention. So, okay, that was a lot. That was a lot of stuff. And we're here to talk about self-compassion as a starting place to address climate change. Big topic. I think how I'd like to open this is with a poem. This is Lost by David Wagner. Stand still. The trees ahead and bushes beside you are not lost. Wherever you are is called here, and you must treat it as a powerful stranger, must ask permission to know it and be known. The forest breathes, listen, it answers. I have made this place around you. If you leave it, you may come back again, saying, here. No two trees are the same to raven. No two branches are the same to wren. If what a tree or a bush does is lost on you, you are surely lost. Stand still. The forest knows where you are. You must let it find you. I have to give that one a couple of breaths. So why I chose to open up with that poem by David Wagner. I think there's some personal things that, and I think it's why it's guided me to nature-based therapy as a modality in my training, is that in nature, you're never really lost. I mean, yes, you can really get lost. You go camping and get lost. You know, there's that literal sense of it. But internally, you're never really lost in nature. You know where you stand. And there's a kind of comfort in that that I've found personally. That when I'm in cities, I think I know too much of who I am, or at least the stories I tell myself. But when I'm in nature, all those stories go away. Or maybe they're there and they're lingering, but like in the periphery. And as the poem talks about, wherever you are is a place called here. And in psychotherapy, we talk about this a lot in the here and now. And Zen Buddhism, same thing, the here and now. Because ultimately, that's where you want to be. The here and now is the only place that you ever really have any power. The past, I joke sometimes. I say that if you want to change the past, too bad, you're late. If you want to change the future, too bad, you're early. But if you want to change the present, great, you're right on time. You're here. And so the here and now is really the only place that you have any power. And it's really the only place that ever really exists, because both are just stories, you know. And so when we talk about self-compassion, what does that mean? I was talking to some colleague friends of mine about this talk, just trying to get like their feel for what I was talking about, and the general idea. And it was so funny too, because I was like, oh, they're nature-based therapists, I'm a trainee, we're gonna like be like, even Steven, we're gonna be like so simpatico. No, not at all. It was just so interesting because I think I talked to 4 colleagues, and I got like 5 answers out of it. And it just kind of made me think, like, this idea of self-compassion is a deeply personal thing. That in self-compassion, we do need some kind of common way, construct that we're talking about. But what it really means in our lives, what it really looks like in our lives, maybe like right now we have 50 people in this room. I guarantee you, if every one of us explained what self-compassion is, we'd probably have 50 or more different answers for that. For me, self-compassion is allowing myself to be a being with needs walking on this little blue ball. That's what self-compassion looks like to me. I had another friend of mine who explained it, that self-compassion is allowing myself to not have to fight every battle. That was an interesting one. So what does self-compassion mean? Okay, so let's get into participation time, because I don't think we have the ability for audience members to like just turn their camera on and talk, which is totally fine. I'm adding a link to the chat. So this is a Padlet. If you've never used Padlet before, it's like sticky notes. That's how I explain it. Don't sign in, don't sign up, because, and this is why I wanted to also do this outside the Discord, is if you don't sign in or sign up and you just answer the questions in where it says add comment, it will be anonymous. So that means you can answer these questions with confidentiality and with anonymity. You can answer it truthfully to the degree that you feel comfortable. But I like that, having the anonymity aspect to it, just so that people can answer in the way that they want to without it being associated with their name, if that caused any issues for you. So there's that link. Feel free to jump in there. And oh, I love that. I'm going into the Padlet, and you guys are already on it. Not being angry at myself when I make mistakes. I love that. Unconditional self-love. Being gentle with myself and being kind with myself. Yeah, I feel you. So as you're answering these questions, and I'll jump back to this stuff throughout the thing. Let me take a moment to get myself back on track. I'm a messy bowl of spaghetti, so sometimes I have to take a moment to get myself back on track. We were talking about self-compassion and what does that mean, and that it's largely going to look very different for each person. But there is a common element that I think is true for everyone when it comes to self-compassion, and that is getting in touch with your suffering. What is your pain? What is it? I'll have to refer to, I don't do well with like typing stuff up. I have to use like notepads and stuff because it just doesn't come out. It's my method. So I'll probably be moving around grabbing stuff. But I was writing this to myself earlier, that how can I show myself love right now, and which part needs it the most? Which part of me needs that love the most? I think that that is getting in touch with your suffering, getting in touch with your pain. What is what's hurting right now? But the trick is in self-compassion is being able to look at that pain, looking at that hurt, looking at that area that needs some love while sitting in your well-being. Because even when things are difficult for you or you're struggling, there's a part of you that's not struggling. Right now I have COVID. I'm really struggling. But there's a part of me that's not struggling. That's my relationship with my spouse. You know, when it's so funny. My wife, she's visiting family right now, and it's just so funny that I get sick and that she's. I mean, I don't want her here because I don't want her to get COVID, but I want her here at the same time. Um, that's me reaching out for my wellness, my well-being, something that I know I'm not struggling in, something that really is a place of safety for me. I think also this talk is a place of safety for me as well. That's part of the reason why I still wanted to do this, even though I had COVID. I knew it was going to be a little messy and I had to let go of some things. But in this talk, in this space, in this topic that is very important to me, self-compassion, I can rest in my wellness as an island of safety to look at the thing that needs some love. For me, it's my body right now. So I've been trying to, and interacting honestly with it. Like, what do you need right now, Mr. Hand? Oh, you need some vitamin water and you need to eat some crackers because you haven't really been eating because things taste weird because they have, Paxlovid and it makes everything taste like a magnet. It's a really weird drug. I can be honest with myself because I'm not worried about the danger of looking at the pain or the suffering. So for me, this is self-compassion, that while resting in my wellness, I can engage with my suffering and address what needs love right now, what needs some support. For me, that's my answer. And I think that's a pretty common thing that is oftentimes explained in Buddhism, in Western psychology as well, like in compassion-based resilience training by Joe Loizo is a Western perspective on that. So let's go to this Padlet, because I've been talking a lot about myself for the moment, and I really want to hear what you guys have to say. What are some needs that self-compassion can address in your life today? Giving myself permission to take time out from interactions with others. I know that one very well, personally. Um, I have friends of mine who are shocked that I'm an introvert because I am. Um, I call myself a charismatic introvert because I can work. I was a professional actor for about 15 years, so I can work a room. And people often, so what do you mean you're an introvert? Like, what are you talking about? Well, not all introverts are necessarily shy. It's just it costs us energy, and after a while, we have to retreat and recharge our batteries. Allowing myself to be a messy bowl of spaghetti. Yep, I know that one. Feeling at peace and making room for learning. Ah, yes. Yeah. Not overstretching, overstressing myself, trying to do too much. Finding a pathway for anger to be present and invigorating fuel for justice and action. Coping with anxiety, depression, CPTSD, removing the stress. Giving myself the acceptance I seek from others so that I don't need someone else to do that for me. Be connected to my emotional self. It could help me get over my own hangups and make progress in my life. Finding paths to keep my self-esteem at a good level. I think that those are all really great recognitions of what your needs are that self-compassion can address in your life. So I've been talking a lot of stuff that comes out of here. I'm going to refer back to some really smart people who are very creative. This is another poem by David Levine. She climbs easily on the box that seats her above the swivel chair at adult height, crosses her legs, left ankle over right, smooths the plastic apron over her lap while the beautician lifts her ponytail and laughs. This is as coarse as a horse's tail. And then, as if that's all there is to say, the woman at once whacks off and tosses its foot and a half into the trash. And the little girl who didn't want her hair cut, but long ago learned successfully how not to say what it is she wants, who, even in this minute, cannot quite grasp her shock and grief, is getting her hair cut for convenience, her mother put it. The long waves gone that had been evidence at night, when loosened from their clasp, she might secretly be a princess. Rather than cry out, she grips her own wrist and looks to her mother in the mirror. But her mother is too polite, or too reserved, or too indifferent to defend the girl. So the girl herself takes up indifference, while the pain follows a channel to a hidden place, almost unknown to her, convinced as she is that her own emotions are not the ones her life depends on. She shifts her gaze from her mother's face back to the haircut so steadily, as if this short-haired child she sees were someone else. I'm going to give that one a couple of breaths too. I think for me, why that poem I wanted to include in this talk is I think to some degree all of us have experienced, whether in childhood or as adults, moments of powerlessness, moments where we don't have autonomy. Choices are being made for us. And so, as the little girl in this poem, she picks up indifference as her way of coping. And that's a heavy reality to take. That your approach to life is indifference. And this is the Solar Punk Conference 2024. This is about building a better future, a future that people want to live in. And indifference does not have a place in that world, at least according to my book. And I can't have indifference in my own life when it comes to me. I have opinions, I have thoughts, I have wants, I have needs. And for some of us, myself being one of them, I definitely had to learn this. I had to learn how to lay down the indifference that I picked up and get charged up. And I could get angry. I could get angry about the things that happened to me in the past. I could get angry about the future. I could get angry about the injustices of now. Or I can give it love. In the Dhammapada, it says, hatred does not cease by hatred. Hatred ceases only by love. This is the eternal law. And something that I write about is that no one ever found healing by declaring war on themselves. You gotta love yourself if you want to find that healing. And so we're going back and looking at the Padlet. What does self-compassion actively look like for you in your practice? Which is another way of saying, how can you show those parts of you that have needs the love? I see here saying no more often than yes. Oh yeah, saying no more often than yes when people ask for my time. I know that one. Understanding that you cannot be productive all the time, and that rest is part of being alive. 100%. Nothing in nature operates at 100%, 100% of the time. And Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist monk, is he a monk, a priest? I think he's a monk. And peace activist and writer. He says, in this world of effort, most of the time, people will say, don't just sit there, do something. But I say, don't just do something, sit there. That in times of struggle, taking that moment of rest, of a break, of relaxation can get you through whatever you're struggling, not always having to do action. Bringing myself into the present moment and accessing what I need right now. Right now, long walks. I love a long walk. I walked and listened to this conference a few hours earlier. That's a great way to be a part of this conference. Changing my internal dialogue about myself to be kinder to myself. It's those stories we tell ourselves. They're really important. If you're going to be an author, be a compassionate author and write love letters to yourself. I lack the tools, so I would be searching for these tools. That's a great place to start. Knowing what you lack is a great place to gain what you need. Taking time, making space, actually working on telling myself the things I need to hear each day, and do work to build myself up. Listening to my body to know what I need, caring for myself like I am my own best friend. I love that. Your own best friend. I love it. Balancing emotions and letting all emotions be. Emotions are good data. You can never, yeah, you can never, just to continue on that same, you can never be happy if you don't know how it feels to be sad. That's very true. In Zen Buddhism, it's oftentimes talked about how in order to know the 10,000 joys, you also have to know the 10,000 sorrows. It's a package deal. They don't sell them a la carte, unfortunately. At least not for humans. I don't know about other beings, but for humans, it's a package deal. Sometimes I go listen to the soundtrack from Kiki's Delivery Service. I love Kiki's Delivery Service when I really need to dig myself out of a hole. Yeah. Allow myself to not know how to go forward. You know, uncertainty is a really scary thing for a lot of people. But if we can allow ourselves to accept that uncertainty, there's some clarity that comes with it. It's like relaxing the eyes so that you can kind of, it's like I don't know if you guys remember the magic eye like visuals where it's all like gobbledygook visually and you relax your eyes and then you can see it's a dolphin or like a schooner or something. And that comment about allowing myself to not know how to go forward, it just kind of reminded me of that relaxation gains a kind of clarity in a time of uncertainty. So how does all this apply to climate change? That's the other side of this, right? Self-compassion as a starting place to address climate change. All right, let's get into that one. And I want to speed through this section because I don't know that I really need to explain climate change very much. I think everybody here is pretty well versed in what it looks like, what it is, the causes. But how does self-compassion act as a starting place to address climate change? Well, one thing is that it took a whole lot of people to create it. So it's probably going to take a whole lot of people to reverse it or to address it. I don't really know how it's going to look and how what the future holds for us. But it took a whole lot of people to get here. It's probably going to take a whole lot of people to get out. But we are only, as far as our area of sovereignty is just this, So what I do affects the world. My relationship with myself. If I redefine my relationship with myself, I redefine my relationship with everything. It's like throwing a stone into a pond, and you see these ripples ripple across the pond, and eventually these ripples they disappear. They stop, but do they really stop? They just become imperceptible to the human eye. But in that pond, every water molecule is pushing up against every other water molecule. So when I drop that stone in the pond and you get those ripples, it's still rippling out to the edges of the pond. It touches everything. There is no separation. So when I redefine my relationship with myself, I redefine my relationship with everything. And I'll say this. So I recently had the privilege a couple months ago to go to Haines, Alaska, which is out in the middle of nowhere, Alaska. Like you have to take a 4.5 hour ferry to get out there. And I was out there doing some in-person nature-based therapy training, and we also had an ecologist who was part of the crew. And so I'm talking to this guy, and we're talking about trees and stuff. He's a really cool guy. You should check him out. His name is Dr. Scott Ramsey. He created this really cool thing called the biophilic profile, and it's like a test that you can a test that you can take to see how the different levels or different ways that you interact with nature or how you connect with nature. Is really cool. But anyway, so I was talking to this ecologist guy, and we were kind of nerding out about science stuff. And he was like, "Yeah, well, the trees can talk." I'm like, "Yeah, man, that's cool." And he's like, "No, really, they can talk. They can talk to each other." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, so the trees, they have, of course, their root systems in the forest, And there's this thing called the mycorrhizal network, and it's a series of fungi in the soil that the trees actually use to communicate to each other. So they use this fungus as a phone line to talk to each other. And they were like, "Oh, hey, spruce, what's hanging? Oh, no, I'm not feeling so well. Oh yeah, what's going on? I don't know. I think I got like a disease or like some bugs going on inside me. I'm not doing so good. Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna go talk to some of the guys. I'll get back at you." And so what will happen is that you got Bruce the spruce, who is not feeling so good and he's sickly, and the other trees will actually send him nutrients from themselves to support this tree that's sickly. And it doesn't even have to be the same species of tree. That's the part that really got me. I was like, it doesn't even have to be the same like family or species. No, they said he said they'll just send it to the trees because the health of the tree is the health of the forest, and the health of the forest is the health of the tree. So this gets back to that self-compassion as a starting place to address climate change. My health and my well-being impacts my community. When I'm not healthy, I can't help my community, whether that's my relationships, my family, my friends, my schoolmates, or the larger community that I live in. I can't help them because I'm not doing well. Likewise, if the community that I'm a part of is not doing well, they can't help me. So the health of the tree is the health of the forest, and the health of the forest is the health of the tree. Again, they're touching. There is no separation. And so when I am doing well, when I can look at my pain from a place of wellness, look at what my needs actually are, I don't do things like drink to excess or buy things I don't need, you know, because consumerism tells us that life is a problem and it's a problem to be solved, and that there's a product or a service that's going to give you the solution. And that there was a time when life was not a problem. That's something that we often forget, when life was a place of wonder, where every stone had a secret, every tree had a story to tell, and that just the mere act of a frog jumping would just elicit this laughter, this instantaneous joy, no charge, free. And we may have to go back a very long time to remember this, maybe 8 or 9, or maybe further back than that. But there was a time when life wasn't a problem. Life was adventure to be discovered. But we got older and then we got working, and then they started to tell us, well, if you want to have joy, then you need to pay for it. And if you're going to pay for it, then you need to work. And then actually you might work doing something that makes you suffer. So you need to actually buy more joy to deal with that. And actually your work might actually cause suffering for other people and the planet as a whole. That's heavy. So when I can look at my suffering from a place of wellness, from a place of compassion, I can address my needs more honestly uh, and more truthfully, without taking resources that don't need to be taken, by entering into a state of reciprocity with nature, by giving back. So I want to jump into some, because I did a lot of theory just then. All right, I want to jump into some really dealy stuff about what can you do? What are some things that you can do? So I wrote a little list. So there's sitting meditation, of course, but sitting meditation doesn't work for everybody. Sometimes it's really hard to sit there. I know my friends who have ADHD, they're like, I don't know how you sit there so long, my friend. I can't do it. And that's totally fine. Walking meditation can be just as powerful. Just being mindful of your steps on this earth, feeling it under your feet. That's a way to rest in your wellness. Taking mindfulness breaks. Um, Build your community, find your tribe. Gardening, hiking, just getting outside. Humans weren't meant to be subterranean. We evolved outside. So getting outside is a way that you can find some compassion for yourself and finding a source of wellness while you're looking at your suffering. Talk to someone, but also, so communication, when we think of communication, like if you take a communication course in school, it's always about you talking, right? Like doing what I'm doing right now. But there's another side to communication, that's called listening. And that when you enter into a state of deep listening with another person, there's a kind of relaxedness, a kind of moment called now that you enter into that feels very, very comfortable. And then this is one that I like to do. I call it stretch, breathe, and pat someone else on the back because someone helped you at some point in time. So I like to stretch, breathe, and remind myself of someone in my life that has really helped me out. Right now, what's coming to my mind is probably my friend Brittany, who called me this morning just to check because she found out I had COVID, just to check if I was okay. There's getting creative, gratitude journals, just doing art, that's always a good one. But how do we show compassion to the earth? How do we how do we address climate change or build a relationship with nature in a compassionate way? Well, there's that gardening, hiking, being in nature thing I talked about. So that's good for both Mother Nature and you. Learn the names of the plants and animals where you live. If you learn their names, I guarantee you'll enter into a new relationship with nature. Learn about big ecology. That was what I learned in Alaska. Blew my mind. It really created a new framework for me to understand ecology, where the mountains up in like Alaska 5 million years ago or however long ago, I forget the actual number, really long time ago, we're actually at the equator. And the tectonic plates pushed them all the way up from the equator up to Alaska. That's like nutter butters. It was like, wow, this is like basically originated like in like, I don't know, Colombia or something. Activate your awe. Get some awe, AWE. Get some awe in your life because nature wants you to see it. I know that's a little anthropocentric to say it that way, but in my relationship with nature, she wants me to see her. And she is, I use the she because she is a mom to me. So I use the female pronoun when I talk about nature. And you can join, of course, cleanup organizations, but I think this is the most important thing. Talk about nature. Talk about it every moment you get. It makes it relevant. That's the most compassionate thing I think you can do to help climate change. Talk about it, talk about it, talk about it. Builds relevance. People can't forget it. They can't push it aside. So with that, I do want to go back to our Padlet and read our last column here, which is what are some self-compassionate choices for your community and environment. Giving myself permission to refrain from participation in positive community activities when I need self-care. 100%. When you're in a community activity, the facilitators should always be building in varying levels of participation, because not everybody wants to jump in gung-ho and just get in there. And some people also need some recharge time. So I love that. Letting myself and others make mistakes, not taking other people's shit personally. Yeah, I think that enters into that story thing I was mentioning, the stories we tell ourselves. It's not all about me, and it's not all for me to carry and worry over. Not expending energy on reaching perfection in any aspect of life. Absolutely. What is perfection anyway? If you got there, I wouldn't even know. If I got there, I wouldn't. I don't think I would even know that I was there. So I might not even. I should not even try for perfection. Being honest about my capacity in any given moment. If I say yes, do the thing I said I would to build trust. If I can't do a thing, say no. Also builds trust. Yes, 100%. I'll even add an extra 10% on that. Accepting my morning commute in a gas vehicle at the same time I'm advocating for better public transportation. I think that's also a kind of self-compassion or a compassion for ourselves, because we are in a system that we have to participate in resource extraction. We can limit it, we can do things to mitigate it, but by being a human being in a consumerist culture, we will participate in resource extraction. So we have to accept that to some degree. Allowing progress to be one step at a time. I don't need to be where other people are in their journey. Every step matters. It doesn't have to be all at once. I think that it doesn't have to be all at once. I think that's like the lesson for everyone in life. It doesn't have to be all at once. So we got like 12 minutes here. Let's get some questions. Oh yes, the haircut poem. I do see that in here. I'm gonna type it, but I'll tell you that is I think it's called Ordinary Heartbreak by David Levine. So does anybody have any questions? Or even in the Q&A, you don't have a question, you have a thought, just something you want to share. I'll read it out loud to everybody. It doesn't have to be a question that I answer. It can just be something that came up for you. I see a raised hand.
That would be me.
Oh, yes. Tell
Yes,
me.
I just wanted to read you something from the Discord.
Yeah.
From Zoria. Tim, if you read this later, or have it read to you, I guess, just know that when you were taking a few breaths, it was okay, because it would allow what you were just saying to sink in.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's taking those moments to just let what was just said have its time, I think is really important. Just allowing for stillness is a great place to move on to our next step, or whatever it is. I get a little messy up in here sometimes. So I need those moments of stillness so I can get back on track. And thank you for recognizing that. So we have some other questions here. Is there a line between compassion for ourselves and compassion for others? Or is it a false dichotomy? Okay. Ooh. To some degree, yes and no. We do need to have an awareness of, I talk about everything touches, there's no separation. But we also have to understand the boundaries between what is, say, my suffering and what is your suffering. And I can have compassion for you, but I also can at the same time recognize that whatever you're going through, whatever I have compassion for, whatever I'm trying to help you with, if I'm becoming an actor in the story, that's your story and not mine. And why that's really important is because we don't want to go in. Okay, so there's helping and there's changing. So helping people and changing people, they're like siblings that have the same mother but two different fathers. So they look very similar, but they don't necessarily have the same lineage, and are exactly the same. So when I help you, I'm putting you first and saying, how can I be of service to you and be a servant? Tell me what you need. Tell me how I can be of help. Instead of me going in and saying, well, you know what we really need to do is you need to drop that guy like a bad habit and get out of this nowhere town and go do this and go do that. That's controlling people. They may not want that. But helping, how can I help you? Uh, you're dealing with a loss. I can't, someone in your life passed away. I can't really do much about that particular problem, but I can, listen to you, make you a dinner, um, drive you around if you're not feeling up to it. So I think there is a line between compassion for ourselves and compassion for others. Sometimes they do interact, but we do need to have those good boundaries to be able to be effective in having compassion for other people by not slipping into their story or having their story slip into ours. So there's that. Can I recommend some literature for self-compassion? 100%, and I'm so glad that you asked this because I have a file just for that purpose. Let's go in here and do that. We have 7 minutes, so it's a race to the end as I go through these tons of windows that I have. But that's not the document. Here we go. This is the document. All right. I'm going to add to the chat here. All right. My computer, desktop, reading list. I just put a file in there, and it has a ton of books that have really helped me out in gaining self-compassion for myself, compassion for myself, and also just understanding how to use my human instrument as I walk through this life. So there's other books in there that have nothing to do with self-compassion, or there's like books on anthropology that I think have really helped me understand, like, what does it mean to be human? To be a human animal, So there's all kinds of stuff in there. So there's that file. This is everything I needed to hear. I'm glad to hear that. And hearing it from a thoughtful community means so much. Thank you. And thank you to that person. So we have 6 minutes. I think.
So Tim, just quickly,
Yeah.
One of our moderators can't ask in the Zoom call, so he's put it in the Discord. I'll read it for you.
Oh, please.
How do you shelf the internalized guilt from having to tell others no when I have plans with myself?
Read that one to me again one more time, just so I can really. That's a good one. I want to make sure I really receive it.
How do you shelf the internalized guilt from having to tell others no when I have plans with myself?
Mm-hmm. What I hear in that question, and I might be reading it wrong, or listening to it wrong. So if it's not answering that question and me saying this, I do apologize. But I guess when I hear that question, I hear a pain that comes up in disappointing people, or in a pain that comes up with not being able to give somebody what they want, and that sometimes we have to say no because saying yes would cost us too much, or saying yes is an impossibility. So if my friend called me up right now, because I'm originally from Hawaii, I'd be like, hey, brah, I'm having one luau, come on by. I'd be like, brother, I'm in New Mexico, I can't come on over. It's an impossibility. But I mean, that's kind of an extreme example, but just for demonstrative purposes. But what I hear in that question is, how do I handle the guilt of disappointing myself or disappointing other people? And I think it would take more than just a simple question to address that. But the best advice I can give is to really hold yourself close and to really, really give yourself some love and say, I hurt right now. Because the tougher you are, the more breakable you become. And so just having that tenderness to say, this hurts when I have to tell people no, and just comforting yourself and saying that it's the right decision, but it still hurts. So that's my answer to that question. Before I read my last poem, is there anything else from the Discord?
I do not believe so.
Okay. So in the last few minutes we have here, I wanted to close with this poem by Mary Oliver called Wild Geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. I'm going to give that another breath. So with that, I would like to express my gratitude to the organizers for this event. You guys are awesome. You've been nothing but kind, especially through my struggles with my COVID situation. And I also want to show my gratitude for the audience for being so engaging in the Padlet with your questions and just sharing this time together. So thank you so much, and I appreciate being here.